in this moment, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is the people in my life. This is what my life presents as.
Acceptance.
And acceptance. And just be in it.
Yeah,
and
be present.
Be present in it and participate in it. Because, you have absolutely no control over the vision that you see in your mind. For as long as it hasn't manifested, it's just a figment of your imagination.
Yeah.
But what is real is the life that is currently before you.
The sapiosexual platter.
You get a vision. 1 year passes, 5 year passes, 10 year passes. And before you know it, you're in your 40s, 50s, your hair is graying, or you're in your 30s feeling lost. And you're like, oh my God, is the vision that I saw for my life real? Am I really destined for greatness? Should I keep going, or maybe I've missed the plot? But faith is important. And in this conversation today, we are talking about the waiting season, what to do when you are waiting for that dream to come to life. My name is Belse Abo Ame.
I am Shatani Samalakai.
And you are watching
The Sapiosexual Platter. Yay.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
To the waiting. Or to the
fulfillment.
The fulfillment, right? Guys, Belle mixed this drink.
It's actually quite good.
Oh, this is good.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, technically, I'm the person that came up with the ingredients and all of that, so.
Conflict. This is how conflict starts.
Just expressing myself, Try not to be scared.
La mutair.
Waiting season. Then when you were introducing it, I just, it almost felt like a sermon. And I'm just like, yeah, there's going to be the episode where we get into our TD Jakes, apparel.
Yeah.
And, preach.
Or maybe not.
I feel like it's a preachy type of topic.
Yeah. I think it could also be vulnerable.
I think let's preach. Let's preach.
Yeah.
Let's preach. Yeah.
Preaching is important.
Yeah. What to do while waiting, I guess. I think for me, when I was thinking about it, I was wondering, should we reframe it? Because are you waiting?
Okay.
I think that maybe sometimes the idea that, your life begins at the point where there's a fulfillment of a dream takes away from the beauty of life as it happens towards the fulfillment of a prophecy, for example, And yeah, and I guess the stories on waiting don't help either. You have a story of say Joseph, who was young, had a dream about one day his brother, sister, mother, father are going to be bowing down to him. And then the chronology of events. Why are you laughing?
Because he then went to be sold and became a slave.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The chronology of events doesn't help. You're sold to slavery. And then you're in this house where you're doing the best that you can. You end up technically going to jail for rape,
Yeah.
And then when you're in jail, you're with people and they basically forget you, And, you listen to that whole story and you're like, oh my gosh, wow. It takes such a long time to get from prophecy to fulfillment, And I also can't even make the case for perhaps there were some joyous moments. Because I think that from the minute you get sold into slavery and you're disconnected from your family, I think every day you have a day where you're
I think beyond that, it's even just the betrayal of the family. The family that you saw bowing down to you.
Yeah.
Then you're like, how is that prophecy going to happen?
Yeah.
If I saw in a dream that they're going to bow down to me, but these same people I saw them bowing down to me are the same people who sold me into slavery.
Yeah.
So it's an extremity.
Yeah. So yeah, but the point is that story doesn't help. But the story of David helps.
But your point, you began the conversation with saying maybe it's about reframing the title and
Yeah.
not saying it's the waiting period, right?
Yeah.
But then what do you then call that period where he's sold into slavery, he's living into a house, he's jailed for rape? That period where you saw one thing and the experiences of life are taking you in the opposite end that make you feel like, did I see right?
Yeah.
Or was it a figment of my imagination?
Imagination.
Like, what was that? What do you title that period?
I don't even know that it's even fair to call it the development phase, because I even think it was just too much. Like,
Yeah.
I just think like, wow, that's intense. Juxtaposed the story of David, which is
Before we get to the story of
I want
David.
to answer the question
Okay.
by juxtaposing.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Oh my gosh.
I'm basically trying to make my point by drawing parallels with another story,
Okay.
right? Of another story that they use to demonstrate the weight.
Okay.
Usually when the sermon is being preached about waiting,
Yeah.
it'll be David, right? David was a shepherd boy, straight chilling.
Yeah.
And then, the prophet Samuel comes and says, I want to anoint one of your boys. And so he then says, here are my sons, and then they go through all the sons until, they finally say, oh, there's one at the field somewhere. I didn't think he would be a candidate, but oh well, let's call him.
Because he was small.
He was small, he was a shepherd boy. The others had all the usual qualities, charismatic, six packs, all of that. So David comes, Samuel anoints him, and the wait between him becoming king is adventurous. At some point he's a musician for the king, and then another point he kills Goliath. So there's a glory moment. Of course, there's a time when now Saul is actually coming after him. But, he actually defeats Saul, and Saul, finally surrenders the kingdom to David. There's a waiting period that I say is developmental. There's different phases. There's the creative side that's being developed through the music. There is the warrior side that's being developed through the fight against Goliath. There's tact and strategy and emotional agility and all of that's being developed when Saul is now running after him. And
Did David see a vision that he was going to be king?
he was anointed.
Okay.
Samuel was a prophet.
Okay.
So the way that it worked is that for you to become king, somebody who was a priest of God, and at the time it was Samuel, would be the one to anoint you.
Okay.
So I think Samuel also anointed Saul. So when this prophet says this is the next king, that's your sign. That's basically the prophecy. So you see, it's two people who got direction from God about leading, and then two totally different ways of getting there, and waiting periods of one becoming king goes through ups and downs, but lots of glory moments.
Yeah.
Another one goes through a lot of, by any stretch of the imagination, you can't call that glory moments.
But I think they were glory moments from your analogy, because they were developing him. I know when he was put through the charges of rape, that's Joseph.
Yeah.
It was because he was rejecting the queen.
Yeah.
So the queen then, because she felt rejected, then lied and said that, oh, he tried to sleep with me.
Oh my gosh, isn't that funny?
What?
Like, the Me Too movement and all of that.
Oh my God.
Like I just had a moment to say this behavior has been there since time immemorial. This behavior has been there.
You
But
rejected
anyway,
me, so oh my God, you raped
I'm gonna
me.
make up a story about
Yeah.
how you've harassed me. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
That was like a demonstration of loyalty, and also just not giving into certain things that are not aligned with your character.
100%.
And I like that you used those two stories as an example, because I think that is reality. It's like your waiting and my waiting would be different, waiting for lack of a better word. So in as much as David's story might be a nicer story to like, see, this is how the waiting season is. It's development. That's not the reality for everybody. There's so many people that go through the story of Joseph, how it unfolded. You have the current president,
Yeah.
who was losing elections for many years, who at a point
Yeah.
during the debates was attacked by the whole nation because of the language that he
Yeah.
used,
Yeah.
and made the nation feel a certain type of way at the time.
Yeah.
And then now for things to just change
Completely
like
turn
day
around.
and night.
Yeah.
For now people loving him so much, him having such good PR,
Yeah.
and people just supporting him
Yeah.
so immensely.
Yeah.
That's a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you call that season?
I don't know, because my resistance to calling it waiting is that so much life happens in that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And when, I guess in hindsight, when you then look back, you go, you know what?
Yeah.
This is what I did to get to my point of fulfillment.
Yeah.
This is what was happening. This is what I think was the turning point,
Yeah.
as it were. Because you can see with both of them that there was different points, and then there's that turning point where you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so
I agree with you.
yeah.
I agree with you that calling it a waiting period would feel some type of way. So I'm just trying to say, okay, since it's not the correct use of the power of the tongue, how would you phrase it?
expansion of your vessel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that with everything, I don't even know if it's for me to share that I've been reading a few things about Kabbalah and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's introduced me to the concept of like the vessel.
Yeah.
And how we all as human beings are a vessel, and our vessel has the capacity to carry different quantities of light,
Yeah.
and that the people who experience a lot of success is because they've expanded their vessel to be able to receive that kind of light.
Yeah.
And the people who gain success and maintain it have also expanded their vessel, not only to just receive the success, but to also be able to maintain it.
Yeah.
So then for me, I just do the conclusion that life is a vessel expansion exercise.
Yeah.
At any given point in time, it's not as though you haven't reached a destination. It's just that you haven't expanded.
Yeah.
And expansion equals fulfillment of, or raising of a consciousness that brings about a particular reality.
Yeah.
Even the sermons will say that when Joseph shared his dream, that probably wasn't the wisest thing to do, because people will tell you, Jorge, when you have, certain ideas planted into you, sharing them exposes them to negativity.
Yeah.
So clearly he wasn't ready for the level of leadership that he had imagined himself to have at the time, because he didn't have the discernment not to share,
Yeah.
particularly with the specific people that would have a resistance towards that notion of you, my son, and me serving you, my son. So the entire process that he went through, I guess, expanded his vessel to a point where not only just his father, mother, and sisters and brothers were bowing down to him, but literally the nation of Israel and the nation of Egypt. So I think it's more like how to expand your vessel in order to
Allowing for light.
and speed the process of fulfillment or the prophecy fulfilled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think for me, what you're saying is accurate, but it's more like an ideal state which we should all embody. But the reality of being a human being is we experience emotions, we experience the waves, the ebbs and flows. And in as much as wisdom is innate in all human beings, because God is within all of us and we have a spiritual knowing of sorts, the beauty of humanity and what we're experiencing is that we are spirits and we know all that you just said.
Yeah.
But when we're going through it, we feel the emotions of waiting.
For sure.
We feel the anxieties, the fears, the depressions. We feel it all. And quote in the Bible, when you look at faith, it says that you're hoping for things that you can't see yet, that you can't consciously interact with, that are there in a realm unseen and unsensed to your physique, your physical makeup. You can't smell it, you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't hear it yet.
Yeah.
Yet you have to hold this image in your mind and believe it'll happen for it to happen. And I think the reason why it'll be commonly called the waiting period is because we live a life of purpose. So the wait, yes, in as much as it can be deemed to be a negative term, is just to explain what is taking place, which is there's a gap between passion and purpose. There's a gap between specialization and skill.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that before you get to a season point of your life, you have to put the 10,000 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes you would have put the 10,000 hours, you're just waiting for the magic of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
To interpret a dream you heard somebody say in a dungeon, and you don't know that moment is what is going to catapult you into the bowing down. So yeah, calling it waiting is negatively coined, but it's also just an explanation of what's happening, the gap between your current reality and your purpose.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why people put so much energy towards the actualized period is because we're all here for a purpose, and we all feel the burn to fulfill our purpose or to be in our purpose. A lot of humanity, a lot of people, they're not living lives that are aligned with that purpose.
That's true.
And they would have received the vision. You would at one point be praying, be dreaming, be daydreaming, be meditating, and you'll be shown who you are, because reality is in a way that you define the beginning with the end. You get shown the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's what motivates you to keep going, because you know how it's going to end. And then there's a time where you lose the faith and the assurance that this is going to happen, because you are now a slave in the dungeon as opposed to the king that bowing down to.
Yeah.
That is so extreme that it creates an emotional conflict, an internal conflict within yourself, where you're like, but I saw this, me being a king. How can a king start off from being a slave? What do you do?
I think maintain certainty first and foremost.
How do you do that?
I think it's a function of faith, and it's an internal thing. It's maintaining that vision to say, look, there may not be evidence, as the scripture you quoted, but notwithstanding the absence of evidence, I within myself carry a resolute stance about what it is I believe I'm meant to be.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
That's the perfect ideal situation. But you as Shatani, have your moments where you're alone and you are going through it.
Yeah.
And you're feeling the emotions of doubt, as we all do.
Yeah.
And you're like, but God, this is what you said, but I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's like, in that moment, if you were to call me, we get to stand within who you are. It'll be so annoying. It'll be so annoying. So for me, it's like, we all know what we're meant to do. It's like knowing that we need to eat healthy.
Yeah.
But do we all do it? And then ending up with the bodies that we don't like.
Yeah.
I feel like with what you're saying, yes, it's great to build certainty.
Yeah.
But even us who we are continuously working on our faith, continuously meditating, trying to eat right, trying to do all the things that we do, we have those moments.
Yeah.
How do you draw yourself back to reality when you have those moments of like lack of clarity? And we had that feeling recently, you and I.
Yeah. I think living in the moment of the reality that you're in is one way. I think accept that, okay, in this moment, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is the people in my life. This is what my life presents as.
Acceptance.
And acceptance. And just be in it.
Yeah, be
and
present.
Be present in it and participate in it. Because, you know, you have absolutely no control over the vision that you see in your mind. For as long as it hasn't manifested, it's just a figment of your imagination.
Yeah.
But what is real is the life that is currently before you. So I would say actively participate in the life that you currently have. I think that's one. And then two, if there's issues that you haven't addressed, address them. Because I think it's often the difficult things that you haven't addressed, that you haven't confronted, that are the reason why you haven't elevated. You know, some of us have to deal with our egos. Some of us have to deal with you know, issues that you have with in central relationships in your life, relationships with your parents, siblings, you know, different people, certain habits that you haven't overcome. In addition to participating in your life, just think about what are the things that are holding me back from experiencing a full life, and beginning to address and confront them one by one. What do you think one should do in the waiting period?
I think for me, the biggest one in the waiting season or development season that you should be doing is taking care of yourself. I think in the chase of career and wanting to achieve things, wanting to achieve success and how people define it, you tend to neglect the little things, the exercise, the eating right, the grooming. Just
like it will be
the
for when
meditation.
you reach the destination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You leave those for when you reach the destination. It's like you work your health away only to spend all the years that you've made the money and the money you made to try to get your health back. So I'd say just deep self-care. Eat right, exercise, meditate, groom yourself, wear the best clothes. Just get yourself right. Self-care is important. I like the one that you said about being present as well. Self-care, being present. And then I think also defining the attributes, the characteristics, the skills that the person you are in the end has. So if I am the person that I saw in the end is like a multi-millionaire, what skills does a multi-millionaire have? What characteristics do they have? Or the type of the millionaire you want to be, or business person, what type of characteristics do they have? And I think just defining those and in everyday practicing and embodying them. Easier said than done. There are days where you would fall off the rail, but I think even in moments where you fall off the rail, having the grace for yourself to be like, life is seasonal, it's multidimensional, and in this season I'm at my lowest, and that's okay. Not charging it, but just allowing yourself to just experience it for what it is. And then I think a lot of visualization and deep self-talk, because sometimes you are in the depression state that you can't even move a muscle. You're just in your bed and you're like, oh my God, I can't do anything. I can't bring myself to do anything. Your physical body is immobile, but your mental body and emotional body is not. So I think in that moment you could just pull those emotions and use your mind to do the work. Lie down there and just visualize. When I find myself in such instance, I'm like, hey, I can't take any action right now. But if you've seen it before, if you've seen yourself do it mentally, you can definitely physically do it. So I'm like, the more times I program my mind to see myself in that state, eventually the external world would catch up. And I think the last one would be a bit of a controversial one, but I'll just say just chill. It's not your duty to bring the vision to life.
Like that.
Your duty is to hold the vision. That's it. How it's gonna happen, it's none of your business. And I have to have those conversations with myself a lot, where I'm like, God gave me the vision, and it's God's job to do the how-tos of the vision, not me. I just need to observe reality and know the cues of inspired action
Yeah.
and to take them. But I think human beings do way too much. We, in putting so much effort, take the power away from
The divine.
magic and God and the divine and put it in ourselves.
Yeah.
Then we strive, and it doesn't happen. So I just think relax, just chill.
Yeah.
Like if you're just always so hardworking, do the reverse, just be a bum.
Yeah.
And
bum.
and being in the bum, literally just take care of yourself, eat right, exercise, feed your mind right.
Yeah.
We as human beings have a God complex because obviously God is in everything in this reality, but because we have consciousness that is somewhat elevated in comparison to other creations in the world, we tend to take too much responsibility of creation. The tree can be out there, it's not watered, but something waters it and it grows.
Yeah.
The bird's the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that is also the experience of human beings. I
Yeah.
think the human beings can evolve by being in an extremely present and meditative state without having to do too much. And the doing too much communicates energy into the universe that, you know what, I will do it myself. I don't need the acceleration of the universe or the help of the universe. The power is in me, the ability is in me, I'll do it. And I think that takes away from so much magic. I'm guilty of this, like just, and it's hard. It's hard because we're programmed as slaves to just work. But I think it does something.
Yeah.
There was a year where I remember this when I lived in my small 1-bedroom apartment. And like I was like, I am not gonna do anything but just take care of myself. And the more I took care of myself, the more money I would make. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
you
I
remember that?
Yeah.
And I was like, this was so odd.
Getting her feminine bag.
I was just be like, and things will just arrive.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, I really don't have to leave my house. I don't have to do too much. But yeah, in the waiting season, I think that'll be it. We've said it all.
Yeah. Definitely. Funny you said chill. I was gonna say joy. It's important to maintain joy in all seasons.
Yeah.
And that I'm not gonna be any less joyful in the waiting season as I am in the fulfillment of the vision or the prophecy. And I think it's important to ask yourself where you derive joy. Do you derive joy from the materialization of a dream, or do you just derive joy from the fact that you are alive and that in this moment all things that you require are supplied by the divine? And so for me, like you say chill, and for me it's just like I say joy. Just be joyous, be happy, you know, smile. You know, everything is under control, as she said. And there you have it. Oh.
Before we have it.
You always do this.
No, before we have it. Because it's down to what you just said now.
Yeah.
I agree to a certain degree.
Okay.
For me, I don't think it is normal to be joyful always. I think what I would say would be more agreeing with joy, but more peace than joy. Because I think it is the nature of humanity or being a human being to experience the different emotions.
Yeah.
So there will be times where you're angered. I would say building acceptance with all states and feelings, but just continuously maintaining a state of peace and fulfillment.
Yeah.
Because if I'm sad, if I've lost a relative and I'm sad, it's hard to then be joyful in that state. And I don't think it's also appropriate to be betraying yourself and what you're going through in that moment. I feel like if the emotion comes, feel it and release it. Than to be like, oh my God, I just lost my dog. I'm joyful.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. I think, I guess maybe I'm just my definition of joy is actually peace and fulfillment.
Oh, okay.
So, like, anyway, it's just a theological thing.
Yeah.
There's a difference between when there's reference to joy in the Bible and happiness.
Okay.
So happiness would just be the, ha, you know, let's just be happy, rapturous, but joy is more of a state of being that emanates from a knowing that God is on your side. So that's why there's a scripture that says the joy of the Lord is your strength. So there's a joy, or I don't know, something that happens in terms of feeling that a knowing of God does, and Christian theology would call that joy. So it actually is the same thing, I guess, when you juxtapose it. It is indeed peace and fulfillment. So yeah, agreed.
Cool.
Yeah, just I guess a difference in terminology based on understanding, but 100% agree. Peace and fulfillment at all times. Be still. So yeah, there you have it, guys. I don't know what you're going through in your life. Allow us in this moment to be prophets of encouragement, to say that joy cometh in the morning, and that indeed your fulfillment will come. I'm excited, and we hope that you can later come back to this video and share of the wonderful things that has happened in your life. So yeah, my name is Shatani Somalaka.
And I am Belsabo Ame.
You've been watching the Sapiosexual Platter.